Okay, so here we are in our 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee. We've come up to our 210 degree operating temperature, and this time we can go ahead and drain the oil. It's always best to drain the oil when it's hot because it's a lot thinner, it drains out a lot faster. Not only this, but any crap that's on your pan or whatever has a lot better chance of being suspended in the oil, and we can get all that stuff out. So you always want to drain your oil when it's hot. So anyway, here we go. Okay, so we got the hood popped here, and the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and open our oil fill cap before we drain the oil. And you know, you don't want it too open to the elements there with dirt falling down in it, but with doing this, then you don't have like a vacuum inside your engine where now the oil is going to flow freely from your pan. It's kind of like the effect of if you turn a bottle upside down and poke a hole in the bottle, the fluid will run out a lot quicker. So quick tip there. Alright, so I've gone ahead and removed any clothing items on my upper body here that I really care about and put on some dirty work clothes, especially since this Jeep's covered in mud. But anyway, from this point, we're going to go ahead and get under the vehicle. Now, in most cases, I'm sure most of you have cars that you can't get under without jacking them up. Now, if you have to jack them up, you always want to check in the manual too. But usually, right in this area, there's going to be a member like this. Now, this Jeep has a subframe. It doesn't have an actual frame, so usually see there's a spot where you have double thick stuff here, and you can go ahead and jack it up from this point or put a jack stand up on this point and do this on both sides, and you'll be able to get under your vehicle. Real simple, but you want to make sure that your jack is centered when you go up. You don't want it sliding off, and you never want to get under a vehicle with just the jack holding it up. I mean, I do it, but you know, for safety's sake, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. But anyway, another quick tip here. Always a nice piece of cardboard from the dumpster is nice to lay on if you're like me where you're working out outside. So anyway, we're going to get our oil pan under there and go ahead to drain our oil. Alright, so we have our oil catch can here, and I want to mention you want to have your breather cap back there and obviously your center cap unplugged here before you go ahead and slide it under in case you forget, because that really results in quite a mess. And it's always a good idea to be empty so you don't overflow it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and slide this under there and get after it. Alright, so first things first here is you want to locate your oil pan drain plug, and that's going to be hooked up to your bell housing, your transmission. So in this case I have a rear wheel drive vehicle, so it's going to go ahead and face towards the back of the vehicle. And anyway, it's pretty simple. Once you locate this, you don't have to have your pan under it right away when you break it loose. Notice I'm using a crescent wrench, which you can do, especially here. I'm a little challenged for tools at the moment, so I just happen to have this in my pocket and it worked. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and with the bottom of my wrench pointing towards the ground, pull it towards me to loosen it. Remember, just you know, as simple as lefty loosey, righty tighty. So you know, pretty easy to remember. So now that I got this loose, now I'm going to go ahead and slide my pan up under here. And you want to have it set back a little bit because the oil is going to kind of projectile away from the plug hole, and they always seem to be angled. So, alright, now we got to the point where the threads are out. We're just going to pull this sucker out. It's hot but not too hot. You don't want to drop your drain plug here into your pan. So now we're just going to let this drain for 20-30 minutes, and we're going to go up top and check a few things out. But notice I said 20-30 minutes. It takes about that long to get all this oil drained out, you know, to get the most out that you can. You know, when you take it up to a mechanic shop and they say 10-minute oil change, you know, that is just absurd. There's no way they can drain all your oil out, all your dirty oil in, you know, 5-10 minutes. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyway, moving on from this. Alright, so this next little bit here is going to be optional, so I'm not going to include in this video, but you can click the link to the video below here. But if you're more of an experienced mechanic and you're changing your oil while your oil's draining out, if you just if you want something to do, what I like to do is loosen my belt here and go ahead, and once it's the tension's taken off the pulleys, go around and check all the in-play of all the pulleys and all that. But you know, check if your belt's cracked up and stuff. But I'll post a link of how to do that here below. But for the sake of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and skip over that part for time's sake. But if you're interested, go ahead and look at that link below. Okay, at this point our oil is all finished being drained out to the point where it just drips every so often, which again takes about 20 minutes or so. And you want to make sure that you clean your fill plug off, and you want to make sure you put it in a place that you'll remember. You know, obviously you wouldn't want to misplace this. And if it has a magnetic piece on the tip, you want to go ahead and wipe that off. But from here we can go ahead and reinstall our plug. Alright, so now we can go ahead and insert our drain plug once our oil is all drained out, and can slide our drain pan out of the way. So as we see here, turn to right, and then kind of a tip about tightening. You know, you don't want to get some big long wrench on here. You know, you can strip out the threads. This pan's a little more resilient because it's an iron pan. But anyway, just use one hand here, and generally one hand will be plenty tight if you just go as tight as you can with your one arm, and it won't come out. So again, you know, using a short wrench is better because you're putting less torque on that bolt. So anyway, that's good and tight. That ain't gonna go anywhere on us, and we can go ahead and pull our filter off and keep on rolling. Okay, we have our drain pan down here located below our oil filter. Now generally you're going to use an oil filter wrench, but you know, I'm kind of strained for tools here today, so I'm just going to go ahead and try and strong arm this, and might need two hands here. Alright, so got that loose. We're just going to, it's going to spit a little oil in this configuration, but we're just going to unscrew it and pull it right off. You always want to change your oil filter when you change your oil. It's just just be ignorant not to. So anyway, off we go, and we can put our new filter in. Okay, so here we have our new oil filter, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of motor oil to it before I install it. Now the reason I'm doing this is because after you change your oil, if you don't add oil to your filter, it's going to be completely dry, and it'll take some time to for your oil pump to pump enough oil up into your filter to fill it up, and then from there it goes to the bearings. So you know, if you don't add oil to your filter, your bearings are going to run dry for longer than normal when you first start up, and you know, it just kind of accelerates engine wear and just kind of takes years off the life. So we're going to go ahead and do this, and I want to make a note that also when you have your oil changed at shops, they definitely neglect to do this. So this is another advantage of changing your oil yourself. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and use a funnel so we can pour it right down in that center hole of the filter. And you know, as always, being out here at school, I'm pressed for tools, so I'm going to go ahead and use this little juice bottle and cut it up with a knife and use it. So anyway, here we go. Alright, so now we got our kind of redneck funnel made here, and we're just going to go ahead and grab our oil. Now this will be kind of interesting as I got one hand, but just try and pour this in here. Usually you can hit the center pretty good, but you just want to fill it up to about halfway. You know, it kind of bubbled up there, but it'll work through the filter and it'll be pretty close to halfway. If a little drips out, that's no big deal. So From there, you're going to use this again, so we're going to want to save that. But we're just going to either take some oil here from inside the filter and wipe around the outside of our seal, or we can just take some from the old filter and wipe around the seal. But obviously you want clean hands if you're sticking in the filter. But we do this so that you know, your O-ring doesn't rip off. You know, it provides some slip where it'll still seal with this oil on it, but you know, you're not going to split your O-ring or knock it off your filter. And another thing, when you pull your old filter off, you always want to make sure that the O-ring is on here, because it's not a pretty sight when you put this new filter on over an old O-ring where you have two O-rings doubled up. It'll shoot some oil out. It's pretty good pressure and make quite a mess. So anyway, with that here, we're gonna go ahead and get this slid on. You don't want to drop a bunch of dirt in it. And man, I'm trying to do this with one hand. It's pretty intense, but I'm fortunate here where I can do this from the top. Most vehicles are located underneath. And I'm going to use two hands here to get this lined up right. Alright, so now we got our filter on. And just like before, we're going to go ahead and just use as tight as we can go with one arm. You know, unless you're Hulk Hogan here, that should be just fine. You shouldn't destroy anything with just one arm. So that should be good and plenty tight. You never want to use an oil filter wrench to tighten these up, because you're going to tighten them way too tight and destroy that O-ring. So good one hand action here, and it should be as tight as you need. Okay, so at this point we're going to go ahead and add our oil. Wish our funnel was a bit bigger, but I think we'll go ahead and make do here. It's kind of difficult to do with one hand, but it always helps to kind of hold your oil back on itself here. And there we go. So, and then judging by how much oil is required by the vehicle and your vehicle specifications, obviously that's how much you want to put in. So this vehicle calls for 5 3/4 of a quart. So anyway, it's going to take this jug plus just a little bit of another quart to change the oil. And you always want to use the you know, your manufacturer specification weight of oil. It doesn't really matter if you go between synthetic and you know, your standard dyno oil, but you know, you go with thicker oil, and when you start your engine up, it takes longer for the oil to get up to the bearings. So you know, you're just damaging things. You'll accelerate the wear on your engine. So you always want to use the manufacturer recommended oil, and you really don't want to go thinner either. You know, you're going against engineers and people who their whole job is to design this stuff. So it's always best to stay, in this case, with manufacturer specifications. But anyway, there we go. That's 5 quarts in. I just have another 3/4 of a quart here to add in. We should be good. And what I do on a lot of my vehicles is, you know, I write how many quarts it takes. Since I have so many vehicles, it's hard for me to remember each and every one. But anyway, we'll get this filled up, and then we'll get it started up, and then once it's ran and got oil to the oil filter and all through the system, we'll check our oil level and see where we're at. But pretty close to done here at this point. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have your oil pan and anything else flammable out from under the vehicle. So we got our cardboard and obviously our drain pan here out, and we'll go ahead and key it up and see how she does. Okay, so we have our we know we have our oil fill plug installed. We then also have our new oil filter on, and we're full of oil. So at this point we're safe to go ahead and start the vehicle. And you'll notice when we start it how long it takes that oil pressure to come up. and you'll see the importance of just how much longer it would take if I would not have added oil to that filter. So go ahead and start her up. See, it takes a little bit there. So for that little bit of time, we were just running on our residual oil that was in the bearings. So this is kind of why manufacturers recommend, you know, extended oil filter or oil change times and stuff of that nature. You know, that's one piece of it. So, you know, I like to go 3,000 to 5,000 miles myself, but you know, that's all relative. But anyway, we see here we got oil pressure and all that, so we should have oil through our system, and we can go ahead and shut our vehicle down. We'll check for any leaks with anything that we did and check our oil level and add if necessary, and we should be good to go. Okay, so when you're on a nice level surface, you're going to go ahead and check your oil. You want to check it on a level surface because you know, your oil sitting in your oil pan, judging on your incline, it will you know, change where your dipstick reads, and it's designed to read on obviously a 0-degree incline. So I've already pulled this out and wiped this off once, and now we can get a reading, and it's kind of hard to tell, but as you can see here, the break in the oil is right at the safe level. So the full safe level, our top mark. So we're good to go. But and I know how much oil this vehicle takes because I've changed the oil in it countless times. But you know, if you're kind of new to this or new to changing oil, I guess, what you want to go ahead and do is add oil up to a point and then maybe leave out half a quart and start it and let it run, and then check your oil, and then judging by how it reads on your dipstick there, you want to add oil accordingly. And basically between these two marks here, that's about 1 quart. In between that small hole to the next small hole, that's about 1 quart, and again, that's your safe margin. So if you're sitting halfway there, halfway up in between those points, another half quart will fill it all the way up. So that's directly comparable to adding 1 quart of oil. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe this dipstick off here, and then we'll go ahead and we're pretty much done, and all that's left is cleanup. So pretty easy oil change. Okay, so with that, you've completed your oil change, and all it's left to do is dispose of your old oil and oil-related products here. So a lot of places allow you to do this for free, so that's pretty good incentive. You know, you don't want to be that guy pouring into the river stream, and plus you'll get sent to jail for stuff like that. So, you know, your friendly neighborhood O'Reilly's, they have a place where you can, in every store, I guess, where you can deposit your old oil for free and discard of your oil-related products for free, and they take care of that for you. So that's real nice. But anyway, that pretty much concludes your basic oil change. So hope you learned something there, and go ahead and do it yourself and don't get ripped off at a shop. So anyway, there you have it.